What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Scrap Trawlers channel, where we do EDH on a budget. I'm your host, Andy Zupke. With me, as always, is your other host, Mr. Nick Martin.
Hello. That was a little awkward. Hi, people. That's better.
Can we get through one intro that isn't, like, horribly awkward and...
No, that's kind of our thing, right?
I guess it is a bit of our shtick. You call it, hey, Colin's here. Nick, what are we doing tonight?
Well, aside from our awkward intros, it's ScrapChat day. It's Tuesday, and we're going to be talking about budget mana bases. So we'll be doing some multicolored lands, utility lands, rocks, and ramp, and rituals, and a whole bunch of other stuff. And if you haven't noticed already, we have our second ever guest for ScrapChat. We have Andy from the Guardian Project. Hello, Andy. How you doing?
Andy number two.
Andy number two. You're outnumbered, Nick. There's only, I'm good. Thank you for having me on the show tonight. How are you guys?
Oh, not any less awkward, but still feeling great.
It's endearing, though. It's an endearing intro, and we all love it.
All right, so budget mana bases. Here we go. We're going to start with multicolored lands. Let's start with temples.
Temples?
Yeah.
Oh, you don't want to start with the first one on the screen. How are you going to make me scroll? Okay,
I suppose we could
we'll scroll. So professional. All right, temples. So these are the ones that enter tapped, give you 2 colors, and you scry when they enter. So these have not always been affordable. They have only become cheap in the last couple of years because they started reprinting them in the core sets, which is awesome. So I've been using them in all of my budget decks because they're great for budget. I used to not be a huge fan of them. I didn't run them in any of my regular decks, but I have enjoyed running them in the budget deck so much that I'm actually kind of starting to include them in my regular decks too, from time to time. What do you guys think about the temples?
So I really like the temples because they remind me of probably my favorite blue land, which is Halimar Depths. This is actually better than Halimar Depths because instead of looking at the top 3 and rearranging, you can just, if the top one is really bad, you can just get rid of it. It's really good early game, helps smooth out your draws, and they're like, because of all their reprints, they're like $1. So it's really light on the budget, and it also fixes your mana. Come on to play tap lands in budget. It's something you can't really avoid. So it's the scry one on that is a very welcome bonus.
It is, and I do run Scry. I think I run Scrylands in most of my decks, even non-budget decks. So Temple of Enlightenment was one that I remember it was quite expensive before it started getting its reprint. So originally from Born of the Gods, it looks like at one point it was up to $10, probably when it was in standard, but it was still hovering around $4 or $5 for a long time. So it's really nice seeing these around $1 to play in most decks, and blue white is the best. So I got to talk about that temple.
Yeah, from what I could tell, it looks like the ones that were reprinted in the core sets are the cheapest. I think because those have been reprinted twice in the core sets, right? Didn't they do the temples 2 years in a row now?
Mm-hmm.
And then the what is it?
Theros Beyond Death.
Theros Beyond Death had like the enemy colored ones, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I think those are just slightly more than the ones that were in the core sets both years. All right, hey Claby, good to see you. Draco?
We got Draco here.
Draco Lucian's here too.
All right, we're not going to spend all night talking about temples. I promise you, people. We're moving on. We're moving on. All right, let's just go from the top of the screen here. Let's look at.
Fine, we'll do it your way.
It's easier. Why do you got to make things difficult?
I can't read the
Andy.
alphabet.
Andy, do you want next job? Because I'm just.
Do you want?
Hold on.
Two
I gotta
Andys
call.
on this
I gotta
show?
call Lenny. Yeah, we can be like CNC Power Hours. It'll just be A&A root beer or something like that.
A&A root beer.
I don't know, something.
I wish I had root beer in my hand. Just water.
Buy your local Walmart.
I'll start. This is one of the land cycles that I really like. These are the show lands from the Shadows block. So, this is the cycle where you see Choked Estuary here. So the lands enter the battlefield. and you can reveal one of the land types that it can tap for. So this one is reveal an island or a swamp from your hand. If you don't, it enters the battlefield tapped. So it can come in untapped if you can reveal it. I actually like these lands. I run probably a larger number of basics than most folks. So this does suffer from, you do have to play a good amount of basics. Early on, I guess it doesn't matter if it comes in tapped. But later in the game, you certainly want it to come in untapped. So I am a fan of these, and on a budget, these are affordable. These are not that expensive. Do either of you play the show lands very often? I think that they're one of those lands that people end up cutting from their mana bases, I'll be honest.
I think I've only played one, to be honest. I'm pretty sure I've played the Azorius, the blue-white one.
Okay.
But these are not lands that I go to very often. Nick?
Yeah, I'm with Claby in chat. I kind of forget that these exist because I only have Choked Estuary. So, but no, I don't know if I would put these in 3, 4, 5 color decks. I think putting it in the 2 color decks is probably perfect because you can really increase the basic land count to get around that clause, so you can take full advantage of it. But yeah, that's a really good pick.
Hey, what's up, Stargirl? So I don't think these aren't like terribly affordable either because they haven't been reprinted. Like they're pretty old. These are from like Shadows over Innistrad, right? Yeah. So
so they are a couple bucks. I mean, the Foreboding Ruins is the red black one. It's around two and a quarter. I think Fortified Village, taking a look at the price, is $140. I think Choked Estuary is one of the higher, around $3, or if you get a promo, they're getting up towards 10.
Yeah.
But these ones are kind of all over. The Game Trail, the red green one, is also around $170. So the single printing is probably also affecting their pricing here.
Yeah, I imagine if these were to show up in the Commander Precons this year, their usage would go way up.
Right.
Just like what happened with the next cycle that we're going to talk about, which were in the Commander Precons last year. So we're looking at Cinderglade. So enters the battlefield tapped unless you control 2 or more basic lands. And of course, this is a whole cycle. We got all 10 of those. I use these in pretty much all of my budget decks for Scrap Trawlers. Because all the ones that were printed in the Commander Precons are pretty cheap. And I think they're pretty decent. I run a lot of basics. Even not in budget, I try to run a lot of basics just because, I don't know, I think it's cheaper.
We don't count them in the tally. So.
This is true.
Yeah, they don't count towards the price of the deck. Yeah, no, I think I do run these. They were very popular originally in the Battle for Zendikar block. So I played a lot of Standard at that time, so I have quite a few of these. So I think I still just have them to grab. And if you are able to or have a tutor for a basic land type that you can go get, you benefit from having it, even if it does still come in tapped.
Yeah, you can get these with Farseek, which is great.
Yeah, I think having the basic land types on it, for me, I like these better than the core set check lands. Like Rubound Crag and all of that. Those are still expensive, and while the clause is less severe than having 2 basics. Again, if you're using it in a 2-color deck, it's not that big of a deal. And being able to fetch it, I think, just puts it a little bit over the top. Farseek I think it's cheap now because it just got reprinted, right?
I think that's getting reprinted in Time Spiral as the old border, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I don't think those are going to lower the price of the existing Farseeks too much because those are pretty. I guess I haven't really looked at it too much, but I think the old border cards are quite a bit harder to come by. Like they're not. You only get 1 per pack, right?
I believe so, and it looks like those are pre-ordering around $5 right now. But it looks like Farseek was in Commander 16, 17, 19, and Mystery Booster. So right now, some versions are under $2. So it's pushing it. Yeah, budget-wise.
Still like to see them under $1, but yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right, but I think if you were going to pick up any of these multicolored lands we're going to talk about, that would eventually push you out of budget. Once if you're a newer player, I would definitely choose these first as some of your earliest pickups.
Yeah, I dig these. I'm a big fan. Okay, moving on. Andy, do you want to talk about this next one here?
The command tower or the filter lands?
The command tower.
Let's do command. Okay, so command tower. It's our format, commander. I put this card. I run this in every deck, even if you don't have to, because it's fun to do. Even in my monocolored decks, I sometimes have a command tower.
Really? I've never done that. I've never done that.
Sometimes you could. I mean, depending on what the deck does, I've been surprised and have been gifted something before that maybe I needed to be able to activate a color on something. So I guess you have it then. But command tower, really useful card. Taps for any color you need in the deck you're playing it in.
Yeah, best land in the format. I always say it's something that's interesting to me is that this card has been printed basically as many times as Soul Ring, but it's Soul Ring will like never go under $2 no matter how many times they reprint it, but this is down to like a quarter. So I don't know. Yeah,
command tower is pretty important for the format, especially on a budget, right? If you're trying to build a 5-color mana base, even if you're not doing a budget, it can get expensive quickly. And having command tower always be at a quarter is just a very good way to at least start on that path of making sure you have your colors fixed and everything.
Mm-hmm. All right. So the next one is Filter Lands. So this is Darkwater Catacombs, the Dimir one. Again, prices are a bit low on these because some of them got reprinted in the last Commander precons. I don't really play with these very much. I think I may have put them in like one deck once, but I don't know. Something about them. I guess they're kind of like a Signet, basically.
They remind me of a Signet on a land, exactly.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you guys think? Nick, what do you think of the Filter Lands?
I just wish I had more of them. I really do like them. They come into play untapped, which is again, going back to when you're on a budget, getting multicolored lands that come into play untapped are hard to come by. Mm-hmm. Having this on turn 1 doesn't matter, but because if you don't have Soul Ring, you're not really doing anything on turn 1 anyway. Right. So having this come into play on any other turn seems like a good deal to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's a cycle. These originally, some of these originally had come out in Odyssey. So you've got Darkwater Catacombs and Mossfire Valley. A lot of these have been reprinted so that the prices come down. Skycloud Expanse. I run them occasionally. This is that land that I usually think about cutting, or I don't grab because I don't have an abundance of these sitting around. They are rares, and a lot of them were reprinted in Commander 2020, and that's probably why some folks have them. But for Skycloud Expanse, for example, it hadn't been printed since Odyssey and a World Championship deck from 2003. So it went from $5 to around 38 cents. So it's definitely on a budget now. I just think that they probably just get overlooked, in all honesty.
Yeah, they're not nearly as ubiquitous as some lands that have been printed to death. Like there's a few coming up we'll talk about here.
Like Command Tower, jeez.
Oh my gosh.
Come on, boring. Only the best.
Again,
the best land ever. All right, Nick, why don't you tell us about the next one?
Good old Exotic Orchard. So we got another potentially 5-color land. It's super cheap. It gets reprinted a lot. I don't know how many times it's been reprinted, but it's enough to the point where you can include it in your budget deck. Pretty useful in decks that, in my opinion, aren't Boros. Just because of how Boros is perceived, I don't think a lot of people play it as much as other colors. So if you're playing a Sultai deck and you need another Shrine land that comes into play untapped, this is a great option.
I run this in everything 3 colors and up.
Yeah, I run this as well. I might even run it in a 2-color deck if I just have one. But I definitely think this is useful card.
Yeah, I like it a lot. It's super cheap. They're like 30 cents. So they're great for our budget decks. And I've never, I don't know, maybe once I can remember that it couldn't give me the mana that I needed. You know, I mean, it happens, but it's very rare that it does. Have either of you ever gotten in trouble with Exotic Orchard not giving you anything you needed?
I have.
In bonus decks.
You know what's funny is sometimes you'll have two of the colors you need, and you realize you're playing against 3 opponents and no one's running your final color, and that's the one you're missing. I mean, it happens, not too often, but it feels really bad when it does.
Right.
All right, Andy, why don't you tell us about bounce lands?
Bounce lands are awesome because they came out on the best plane originally. So, you know, from Ravnica, right here we've got Gruul Turf. So they come into play tapped. When they come in, you have to return a land you control to its owner's hand, and then they tap to add 2 colors. So, for example, this one is tapping for red and green. So if you have lands that have enter the battlefield, you know, triggers, abilities, or you're running a landfall deck, which are really popular in Commander now. I don't run these a ton, I'll be honest, but I run these in landfall decks, and I run these in decks that need to hit their land drops, and I don't mind it being a little slower. I do think they're slow, and they feel really bad on turn 1 and 2.
They really do.
Certainly not on turn 1 unless you really want to discard something to the graveyard, but on turn 2, it feels rough as well.
Yeah, that's mainly why I never play them, because I've seen them just hurt people on turn 1 and 2 so many times that I don't want to get involved with that. I only just put them in the new Kodama and Tevish Zot deck I built because these are fun with Kodama. But other than that, I never play them just because they're awful in the early game. They're just horrible.
You know, chat, they mentioned that they're great in Reanimator decks. On turn 1, if you can pitch something ginormous and then you plan to, I don't know, cast a Reanimate or something on turn 2, wonderful. That's fun.
Sure.
But otherwise, I agree with you. I usually avoid these. I do usually avoid bounce lands.
Nick?
So I've been talking with a friend of the show, Anton, at All Hail Bolus on Twitter. He's a pretty big, what do you want to call us? What do you call those people? He likes to talk about putting more lands in your decks, right?
Yeah.
And so these Karoo lands are like an artificial way to up your land count in your deck without having to add more lands to your deck. So you could be running, 37, 38 lands in your deck, but if 3 of them are these Karoos, you're actually more or less running, upwards of 40, 41 sources of ramp in your deck. So yeah, it's not good on turn 1, but Soul Ring isn't that great if it's not on turn 1 either. So if it's anything other than
blasphemy,
you take
blasphemy. Go play Modern, jerk. Don't talk about Soul Ring that way.
Soul Ring's overrated, even though it might be what we're talking about in another
Colin said Landvocate is what.
Thank you. Advocate, Soul Devi Advocate, right? Is that what the word is? I don't know. Anyway, the Karoos are super nice for getting more mana out of your lands than you would normally get.
Yeah.
And their quarters.
Andy.
Yeah.
This is why I would kill you first. I don't agree with me.
This is why you kill me first? Wow.
Because you don't play Karoos.
Man, I'm not gonna. All right. Next up, Andy. Oh, whose turn is it? Is it me?
I think it's you.
Okay. I'll talk about the gain lands. So here we got Jungle Hollow. They ender tapped, and when it enters, you gain a life. They tap for 2 different colors. I've actually grown really fond of these in the last few months since we've been doing Scrap Trawlers, building budget decks all the time. They're super cheap because they're getting reprinted all the time. Ikoria had them. I think Corset had them recently too. They're great for turn 1 because you most of the time you're not going to have a turn 1 play, so just getting that one extra life doesn't seem like a lot, but I've seen it like save people from losing a game.
And then you become the highest life total, and you're target number 1 too.
Yeah.
Right? 41?
Yeah, and then you immediately win the game, right?
Exactly.
Oh, I'm higher than I started. I win.
Uh-oh.
Exactly why I don't like these lands. Because of that interaction, like, yeah, this is an easy turn 1, right? But then you're on the throne, and we all know how we like to joke around. It's like, oh, you're on the throne, you're the highest life.
Target acquired.
Exactly, but if somebody's playing, like, I don't know, Xenagod, it's like, you're the highest life total, I'm going to hit you for 40. Like, you're still alive, but you're not really alive.
Listen, and in a Marchesa dethrone deck, unfortunately, gotta go for you.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want that.
What's up, Star Girl? Thanks for joining us. And Caleb and Lenny. I don't think I said hi to Lenny. Hi, Lenny. Lenny says, winning off a game land with Sanguine Bond and Exquisite Blood feels good. Wow, I bet that does. I bet that is pretty cool.
If you need a game land to win the game with those two on board, I don't know.
Listen, I'm just a big fan of Sanguine Bond and Exquisite Blood, so Lenny, that was a...
It's degenerate.
For that.
It's degenerate.
Now you got Vito. I'm gaining here.
I'm gaining here.
I love Vito. I won with Vito last night. It was great.
Did you? That's great.
Yeah. In my Tazri deck. It's pretty cool. Nick, let's talk about the next one.
Okay. Ooh, yeah, we're on the Pain lands. I like these ones better because they hurt me. So they come into play on tap.
He likes to be hurt.
If you're playing Eldrazi, this is technically a tri-land because it does produce colorless mana. So that's something to consider.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they're cheap enough yet. I think like Adakar Waste, the Azorius one, is still way too expensive.
So all the ones that were reprinted last year are cheap, and the ones that haven't been reprinted like several years, like Adakar Waste, Sulphurous Springs. There's a few other ones that just they don't reprint, but the ones that they do reprint are really cheap.
The enemy color ones, so I think it's Shivan Reef, Caves of Koilos, Llanowar Waste, Battlefield Forge, and Yavimaya Coast are the 5 that are the affordable ones. It's the allied Pain lands are not so budget. They're not ridiculous, but they're certainly not budget.
Adakar Waste is pretty expensive. It's over $10. Yeah.
Oh, is it really? Oh,
yeah.
Wow, I did not realize it was that high.
Yeah, I think Sulphurous Springs I thought it was like over 8 or something. Yeah, the ones they haven't reprinted. Why, Wizards? Yeah. Reprint them. We have the other ones. Give us the ones we need. So we
haven't had Adakar Waste since 10th edition. It's $15 from there, and 9th edition is 10 because it's white bordered.
Should be more expensive in my opinion.
That's an opinion.
See, I think the Pain lands are great. I love them. The ones that are cheap, I run them in all of my Scrap Trawlers decks. I've played Llanowar Wastes in a ton of decks. Mm-hmm. We just need the other 5 reprinted like yesterday. Hopefully we'll see those in the pre-cons this year. We'll find out next month. Is that next month already?
Oh god, it is.
I can't believe it's already next month.
Yeah, because they're coming with Strixhaven, right? The pre-cons?
Yeah. I can't believe it's not butter. So what's the next one?
I can't believe it's not butter.
Andy.
The next is the tricolored lands that had originally come out in the Cons of Tarkir block. So we've got at least the Frontier Bivouac, Mystic Monastery, Nomad Outpost, Opulent Palace, and Sand Step Citadel. So Nomad Outpost, I run these in my 3-color decks. If I'm in the wedge, I'm obviously running it. Yeah. These have been reprinted a few times. I mean, they came out in Cons. They were in the dual deck. Some of them were in a dual deck, and then they were in Commander at least 16, 17, and 20 for Nomad Outpost specifically. So it's around 40 cents. Yeah. At least the most current version. So affordable, and I don't mind this coming in tapped. Not a problem to me.
Yeah, I don't either. They're like the whole cycle is cheap, so I run them in, all my 3-color decks. They're great. Nick?
Yeah, I wish the shards versions were reprinted a little bit more because I know they're more expensive because they're older. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I definitely put these in every single one of my 3-color budget decks, which I don't I don't normally go above 2 colors if I can help it, just because, the more you have to spend in your mana base, the less you're going to have for the rest of your deck.
Exactly.
So these are nice, nice cheap options if you are going to try to max out on basics, but you still want your complete fixing. These are great.
I think almost all of my Scrap Trawlers decks have been 3-color decks.
Well, I hope you learned something today, Andy.
Playing on hard mode.
Yeah, I kind of am. That's probably why I get killed first every time. All right.
Too many game lands, man.
So this next one wasn't cheap until just a few months ago. This is Path of Ancestry, and it was just reprinted in Commander Legends, and it looks like it was reprinted in the Kaldheim precons too. Mm-hmm. Before that, what was it? It was like at least $5, I think. Before that,
yeah, it was originally printed in the Tribal Commander set with C17,
C17,
yeah,
one of them. And it's another super budget option for as like a 5-color land. And it has the added benefit of, if you happen to be playing Tribal, even if you aren't, you can just sometimes get a free scry, which is really good.
If you remember to do it. I always forget.
I've forgotten many times, yeah. Yeah, this is pretty good even if you're not Tribal, like even if some of your creatures match. Like if your commander is a human, you're likely to have, if you're running creatures, you're likely to have a few more humans in there, And it triggers off of when you cast your commander.
It does trigger
when
you cast
does.
your commander.
Yeah, so scrying is always good. It enters tap, but it's that's okay. Just we just got, if we're playing on a budget, that's just something we got to live with.
You win some, you lose some, right?
Yeah, but no, I think Path is great. I'm super stoked that they brought it back for Commander Legends, and looks like maybe they'll keep reprinting it to keep the price down. So that'll be great because it's an excellent land. All right, we already talked about the temples. Let's anything.
One thing I want to add to that: if you're playing Orvar of the All form, you should put this in your deck. On EDH Rec, it's only seeing play in 98 of the 423 decks. But if you play that, anytime you cast a creature, you're going to scry 1 because your commander is every single creature type.
There you go.
As I'm sitting here next to my Orvar
deck. There's your hot pet.
Go ahead,
there
slot it in.
I got to add it now. It's definitely not in my list.
All right. Should we move on to the utility lands?
Let's do it up.
Okay.
You all have actual utility lands listed. I don't know. I made the category and I obviously just didn't try hard enough. So
two of mine are going to be argumentatively utility lands because by definition, right, they do something other than tap for mana, and 2 of mine kind of do.
That's fair.
Yeah. Based on your list, who was red on our list? Was that Nick or was that Andy?
I am red.
All right. Okay, I actually left one of yours off because I disagreed with it so hard.
What?
Is it the one that's highlighted in red?
Yeah, I don't think those are utilities. We can talk about those.
Okay.
We can talk about those.
Let's talk about it.
Okay, but first let's start with this first card. I think Nick, are you up?
Sure, yeah. So we got Ash Barrens isn't even on this list. Yes. Oh, yes, it is. Sorry about that, Andy. So Ash Barrens, I do like this in 3-color and up decks, just because if you're really hurting to, try to fix your colors, this is an easy and cheap way to do it. You also have the added benefit of, if you're playing budget versions of Lord Windgrace, you can kind of just, pitch this and then get it back later. So that's kind of nice.
I love Ash Barrens. For the longest time, it wasn't reprinted for so long because it came out in Commander 16, and I don't think it was reprinted until Masters 25. And there were a few years, I believe, between that, and it was a single printing in just Commander precons, so they were not plentiful. Now I'm glad they're around 36 cents.
Yeah. I don't run this in very many decks. I run it in Traxos. Because, I have pretty much every non-basic colorless land in Traxos. But I don't think I ever use it for anything else. I don't know. Maybe I should, but I generally don't.
It is basic land cycling, so you can't grab a dual land. But I don't know. I don't mind it because sometimes I just want to get. Sometimes I have an added benefit of something that cares about me drawing a card. Just incremental value. Like, oops, I guess I get value because I drew this. Most of the time, it's just by accident, though.
Mm. All right. Moving on. I'll talk about this next one because I added it. So this is Guard Armory. So this is part of a cycle from Kaldheim that I'm actually a big fan of these, especially for budget decks. Especially Guard Armory is really, really good. So that enters tapped and only taps for 1 color mana. But if you're playing it with the 2 colors on here, you can sacrifice it to go do something that is pretty good. Especially this one, you can go get any aura or equipment card, put it into your hand. That's pretty powerful. I like this card a lot. Some of the other ones are not as good, but some of them are pretty good. I know these can be compared to the ones from Dominaria, which were all monocolored, but I don't know. I feel like these are better. Like, the effects on these are just better in general.
I haven't gotten any. I don't have any experience. I haven't been able to play with any of them yet. They're in decks. I've certainly added them. I have no experience, but I think the Boros one's really great to be able to tutor for an aura or an equipment. It feels like card advantage. Feels like.
Hey, Mana Curves rating with a party of 20.
Hey,
thank you, friends. Always glad to see you here.
So exciting. Oh, now I gotta talk about it. My favorite one is the Azorius one. Because it's actual card advantage. You just get to, what is it, like gain some life and draw 2 cards. Like on a land, that's amazing. You do that late game, you're back in the game, you can start contributing.
What's up, Kyoji? Hey, Todd, thank you for the follow. Claby, thank you for the follow too. I missed a few follows here. We're still waiting on our alerts here. Acolyte, thank you for the follow. Appreciate it. Yeah.
Oh, we should tell people that are rating what we're doing. Hi, people that are rating. I'm going to tell you what we're doing.
Go ahead.
So we are talking about mana bases on a budget. So we're going to go through some multicolored lands, utility lands, rocks, ramps, rituals. So if you're into that kind of stuff and, want to buy some of these cards and maybe have room for some Burger King afterward, well, thank you. Maybe your stomach will thank you. Who knows? Your decks will thank you.
Yeah, okay. So we already covered the multicolored lands. We're on to the utility lands now. Let's move on to the next one, Andy.
Emergent Zone. This is a land that taps for 1 generic mana, or it has pay 1 and tap it, and sacrifice it, and you can cast spells this turn as though they had flash. So I am a big fan of this. If you're running a deck that has lots of low CMC spells, Emergent Zone can be really useful. I also just like leaving it up with a couple mana because folks don't know what you're going to play. You may not have anything that you plan to do with it, but it's a pretty nice political tool.
Big Maz 27, thank you for the follow, and Mystic Chaos 10, thank you. Mystic Chaos, when I first read your name, I thought it said Mustachios, but it doesn't say that at all. It says Mystic Chaos. Mana Curves, thank you again for the raid. Very awesome, and happy to see you in chat as well. I love the Emergent Zone. The funny thing about Emergent Zone is that I rarely use its activated ability. Like, I almost never do. But I run it in almost every 2-color or less deck. I don't usually run it in 3 colors just because, it doesn't give you colored mana. Nick, what do you think of Emergent Zone?
I think I need to buy some because I forgot it existed.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I got a ton of them.
It's a temporary version of, Alchemist Refuge. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Having flash for your sorcery speed, anything is excellent. So, like, I like Alchemist Refuge in my Ricksmithy Sea Monsters deck, just because, instant speed, giant 8/8 is pretty dang scary. So being able to do that, on the cheap seems like a good deal.
And it's not relegated to a Simic deck.
Right.
You do it in
Not
any
all
deck.
Simic decks.
No, not Simic decks. Yep. Let's see. Let's move on to the Panoramas. So up on the screen, we've got Esper Panorama. That's the one that can search for plains, island, or swamp. But I think these exist for... Are there 5 of these, or are there 10? Do they have the whole cycle? There's only 5.
There are 5, yeah. Bant, Esper, Grixis, Jund, and Naya Panorama. So most of them are around $1. Bant is the most, which I was surprised when we were putting this together. Naya is the least expensive. So I think these are useful. You search for a basic, but in a 3-color deck where you're trying to make sure that you're fixing your colors on a budget, I think these are really useful. And if you've already gotten all of your colors, it still taps for a generic, so you don't even need to sacrifice it if you don't want to.
This is true. And the interesting thing about these is that you don't have to be playing... you don't have to be playing white to play an Esper Panorama. Correct. Much like with the fetch lands, you don't have to be in those colors. You could be playing Dimir and run an Esper Panorama to go get yourself an islands or a swamp. So they're super useful. It'd be nice if we had this in the other 5 wedges, the cons wedges, whatever you call them. It'd be nice if we had those, but I like them. I use this whenever I can. Panoramas.
Yeah, I agree. These are some of my favorites because they are Evolving Wilds fetch lands when you need them, and they are waste when you don't. So, it's great. Can't complain.
Yeah.
But I would love to see a Jeskai Panorama. That just sounds right. Jeskai Panorama.
It would be nice if they finished that cycle.
Yeah.
I agree. All right. Nick, I think you just mentioned this card, but let's talk about it.
Yeah, Evolving Wilds and Terramorphic Expanse, functionally the same card.
Yep.
I put them... So, I want to talk to you, too, about this. So, I used to put them in every single deck that wasn't monocolored.
Okay.
And then I thought about it, and I don't think these belong in 2-color decks.
Omnath would like to have a word with you.
Extra, right? But
I'll be honest, I'm mostly running them when I have landfall triggers. For the most part, I'm not running Evolving Wilds and Terramorphic Expanse, only because they're a little slow and they don't tap for mana immediately. Yeah. So that's the reason. Is I would love to be if that tapped for a generic mana and had it. I mean, it was a make your own panorama, I guess. But it doesn't.
Yeah. So I tend to, usually what I do is I think with 2-color decks, I run one or the other, and then with 3 and up, I might run both.
Okay.
But I definitely don't do both in a 2-color deck, because that's too much.
Yeah, and I wouldn't normally run them in 2-color decks, which I am doing right now. I need to stop. It's for fixing, right? You could run a Guildgate and it does the same thing. That's pretty much what it is.
Yeah,
and
you're absolutely right.
You get both colors,
right?
So. And you can also gain a life if you're playing, the gain lands.
Yeah, you are 100% right. I agree with you. In a 2-color deck, you're better off with a gain land or just Guildgate because you get both colors. Yeah.
Yep.
And the good news is, upon this realization, I now suddenly have like 4 more of each that I can put into 3-color decks. So that's great.
Okay. Andy, you wanna grab the next one?
Yes, I would like to talk about the one that has land destruction on it. That's not my MO, honestly. I had to say it like that. So Field of Ruin taps for 1 generic mana, but also has an ability to pay 2, tap and sack it to destroy target non-basic land an opponent controls, and then each player searches their library for a basic land, puts it onto the battlefield, and then shuffles their library. So the person who's getting hit and you are not netting mana, but you're just helping the other 2 people at the pod. But I've started running Field of Ruin much more often because of those pesky Cabal coffers you can run into, or Urborg, or Nykthos Shrine to Nyx, or even the Mazavith or Mystifying Maze that they get me with whatever I'm doing. I don't mind it because I'm replacing it with the basics, so I don't feel so bad that I'm blowing up someone's land.
Yeah, and Field of Ruin was just reprinted in Theros Beyond Death. I think before that it wasn't super cheap. It was like a couple bucks before that. And we can compare this to Ghost Quarter, which is just sacrifice it, destroy any land, and then his controller searches for basic land. Do we got one more on here? Yeah, Tectonic Edge. Pay 1, sacrifice it, destroy target. This can only hit non-basic lands. And activate this ability only if an opponent controls 4 or more lands, so they don't get to fetch. But you can only do it if they're already up on lands, so...
Max says, leave my Nykthos alone. No, Max, we can't leave it alone.
So the interesting thing about these, and Nick, you can probably back me up on this, is that I don't tend to do these in budget when we're playing like Scrap Trawlers, where I know I'm playing against budget decks, because when you're running budget decks, those troublesome lands like the Cabal Coffers and the Nykthos and the Maze of Iths, you're not going to see those. We see very few lands that are troublesome enough that we want to blow them up when we're playing in a budget pod. Now, if we want to take these out into the real world and play against non-budget decks, then we'll probably want to slot a few of those in.
Yeah, my thoughts exactly. I was just about to mention that. So if you're playing in a budget meta, the high priority targets you're going to want to hit are Rogue's Passage and Wreck Tower. And unless you're, like, if you're playing in a budget meta, otherwise you probably don't need these. But if you're building a regular deck and you want if you want to buff up your mana base on the cheap, I put these in, I think, every single deck, all 3 of them.
All 3 of them?
Just because, yeah, all 3 of them.
Oh, wow.
Tech Edge, Ghost Quarter, just, having your lands do more for you is great. So you could bring, like, my Vadrock deck to a table with decks that cost, 20 times as much, and they'll play their Nykthos, and then I'll kill it, and then I'll laugh because my quarter killed their, 2 Benjamins. It's sweet.
Yeah.
I run more Ghost Quarter because of you. I never pull them. Like, I have some. I never pull them out just because of colorless, and I end up running 2-3 color decks. They're a lot more useful than I had initially thought, especially as we get more and more useful lands.
Yeah.
As sets come out.
Yeah, same for me. I pretty much try to slot Ghost Quarter in every deck, and the other 2 I don't really touch too often. Just because I think Ghost Quarter is obviously the most efficient because you don't have to put any mana into it to activate it. And they're also super cheap, so yeah, I usually just do Ghost Quarter and that's it. All right, let's talk about the cycling lands, the cheap ones, not the triomes. So these are all monocolored, and they enter tapped, and you can pay a mana to cycle them. So you just discard a card and draw a card. Let's actually get it on the screen here. So this is Forgotten Cave, the red one. Each color has its own. I tend to run these in monocolor decks and nowhere else. What about you guys?
I run them in monocolor decks, but I think I also might even run in the deserts from the Amonkhet block, which are also cycling. They cost more to cycle, but I have more of them. So they almost do the same thing. So you've got the Desert of the Glorified and Desert of the Indomitable. They're just a cycling land that cost 1 generic and the color as opposed to just the color. It's nice that you have both options, though, on a budget.
Yeah, I never do the deserts, partially because I think these are more efficient, and partially because I wasn't playing during Amonkhet, so I just don't have many. But
okay,
yeah, I never run those.
Yeah, in monocolored decks, I run all 3 of them. There's the one that, cycles for the single color. There's the other that's the desert, and then the third that's, I think, a colorless and a color. But, just having those late game in case you don't need the land drop, like if you're looking for an out, this is an excellent way to, it saves you from having bad top decks, right? You pitch it, you get another chance at something new. So these are great.
Yeah, they're fantastic for the late game. Yeah,
absolutely. looking right now, I didn't even realize also that the cycling lands that were originally from Amonkhet, the rares that tap for 2 different colors, they're also about 30 cents, like irrigated farmland. So adding that to the group of cycling, I didn't realize how many cycling lands there were, honestly, until we put together the summary, and I think ignoring the triomes, obviously, because those are not in the budget. Even the 2-color ones seem to be pretty affordable.
Yeah, I guess I missed that on our list, or we all did. I'm not going to take the full blame. But because they do have the basic land types on them, so that can be very beneficial as well. All right, we can skip Ghost Quarter since we already talked about those.
Nick already said he was going to blow up all of our lands, so let's skip that.
Yeah.
Here's another budget land you should blow up. We got Handwear Battlements. So it's a red. In red decks, it's a haste source from a land. I don't know how much this is, but it's on the list. I didn't put it on the list, but I wish I did. This is an excellent land. If you happen to run the weird human that melds with it, that's always a good time, right? You make 3/2 weirdo Eldrazi's. That's cool.
Yeah, so Handwear Battlements, let me look that up. EIR?
EIO.
Yeah. EIO. So this is under 250, so it's pushing the limit on budget decks. It has a single printing in Eldritch Moon. That's part of a specific mechanic that might not be printed. I don't know, even again. It's got that meld mechanic, which there weren't very many of. But I think I put this in every red-based deck. This is one of those lands that I use a lot because I really want my creatures to be able to swing immediately. Now, a lot of red creatures already have haste, but if you're pairing red with something, I like giving things haste. And then, so I added this to the list. I like this one. It's pushing the limit on budget. I'll be honest.
Yeah, there's an aura that just came out in Ikoria. I'm blanking on the name right now, but it costs 1 red. You would chance one of your lands, and then it says you can tap your land to give a creature haste.
I think it also.
I forget what it's called.
Footfall Crater.
Footfall Crater. Thank you. Crater. Yeah, those are great. People should be running those more often. Okay. Andy, you wanna hit the next one?
Myriad Landscape, sure. It enters the battlefield taps for a generic mana, and has pay 2, tap, sacrifice it, search your library for up to 2 basic lands that share a land type, and put them onto the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle your library. So really, really great deck if you are running, I guess if you decide that you can afford snow lands, you can grab an island, a snow-covered island, and a regular island. But otherwise, you can get 2 basics that you need if you're in a multicolor deck. I play Myriad Landscape often. What do you guys? I mean, how about you?
So, interesting thing about Myriad Landscape is that, this is probably not interesting to you. I actually used to not play them because I didn't see the benefit to them because I was like, oh, they come into play tap, wow. But I have recently really come around to them. Like, even in just my regular decks, too. Like, I recently noticed I wasn't running it in my Goreclaw deck. I'm like, why the hell am I not playing this in Goreclaw? This land would be awesome. This land is awesome in any monocolored deck. Unless you're playing, like, CEDH, in which case you're listening to the wrong show here. But I think Myriad Landscape is great. I actually put them in pretty much all my 2-color, 1-color decks now. Nick?
Yeah, I would. I normally play this in monocolor decks. I tend to shy away from anything more than that, just because of the same land type clause that's on there. I'll play in a Boros deck because Boros needs all the help he can get. But again, Andy, as you mentioned, even in like green decks, this is great. This is like it's kind of like a Burnished Heart on a land. It's pretty good.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. This next one is one that I play too often. I shouldn't play it nearly as often as I do, but I put it in.
Blow it up.
Yeah, I put it in almost all of my budget decks, and I rarely get to use it because it's so expensive to activate. It's called Rogue's Passage. Pay 4, target creature can't be blocked this turn. So it's super expensive to activate, but it can be the game winner at the end of the game. It doesn't always do that, but it can do that, and so I think it's definitely worth considering, especially You could probably get away with it in 3-color decks. More likely, you'd probably want to run this in 2 or 1-color deck where, you got big creatures, or obviously pretty much any Voltron deck is gonna run this.
Yeah, I was gonna say a Voltron deck. So when I was on the Scrap Trawlers stream and I played my Godzilla deck, or Zalortha Strength Incarnate, I run this because I'm specifically trying to get in with commander damage, and the evasiveness is not always the easiest thing to come by in the deck that I built. So I run this seldomly, but I think about it when I build most decks. Is this going to matter? Do I need to do this?
Claby in chat has a really good point here. You can use this politically because it doesn't have to be one of your creatures.
I'm pretty sure that's how I died on an episode.
Good.
It was either on an episode or like in a casual game, but that is a thing that happens, and it does kill players, and it's really funny.
Yeah, it's a lot of mana to keep up for that, but still, it's a good land. I run it a lot. A lot. All right, Nick, you're a big fan of this next one. I think you should read it.
So, Scavenger Grounds. This is when this land came out in Amonkhet, Hour Devastation, whatever the original set was. I literally went to my LGS and bought every single copy. I think I bought 20 copies. This card is Bojuka Bog for every deck. It's amazing. I love this card so much. Aaron hates it, which makes it even better.
that just makes you love it more.
Yeah, but no, like, if you put Scavenger Grounds in your deck and you're not playing a graveyard-based deck, you no longer have to devote a slot to something like Tormod's Crypt, because it's just kind of there. So, and if you don't ever need to, pop it, it's still just a land. It taps for mana. And it gets reprinted a lot. I think right now it's still under $1.
Yeah, right now it looks like you can get it for about $1.30. It was an Hour of Devastation, Commander 20. I think it was actually only Hour of Devastation in Commander 2020.
Yeah, it hasn't had a lot of reprints.
Okay, not reprinted a lot, but we'll
that's
see
affordable
more,
for only 2 prints.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably pick them up now, because unless it gets reprinted again soon, I think they'll probably go up.
And it's a desert, so you can pick it up with your Chef at Monitor or whatever you're playing with Desert Tribal.
Okay.
There are cards.
Sure.
Desert Tribal.
There are cards that search for deserts. Our promise. Thank you, Clavy. See, I'm not crazy.
Yes.
All right, Andy, you want to get this next one?
Yeah. So this is the first of the two that I think is argumentative that it's considered a utility land. This is Spire of Industry. So it taps for a generic, or you can pay 1 life to get 1 mana of any color, only if you control an artifact. The card's under $1. I run plenty of rocks in most of my decks, or artifact creatures, and I do think that Spire of Industry is not seen as often as I would have expected when Aether Revolt was released, and I was playing Commander at the time, and it's very affordable. So I don't. Do either of you run this? I think most people don't.
I do. I actually just picked up this card for my Vadrock budget deck because I always thought that Modern Affinity played it, and I thought it was like a $10 card. And I looked at it and I'm like, this is nothing. Why aren't people playing this? This card is amazing. I'm sad that I forgot to put it on the list.
Yeah. So I think this probably should have been on the other screen because it's not really a utility, but
it's not really utility.
I don't currently have an artifact deck that is more than colorless. So, but if I did, if I had like a 3 or 4 color artifact deck, I would definitely run it because it's pretty good.
According to EDH Rec, it's played in less than 10,000 decks, and only 2% of the decks it could be played in. So, based on at least what people are logging online and are being collected, it's not played very often.
Yeah, should be. Okay. I will get this last utility one. I had never run this, but I'm happy to read it.
I don't know what it does.
Untitled, the Cloud Keeper. So this is like the only land from Kamigawa that is cheap of their legendary lands.
Pretty much.
So it comes into play tapped. Tap it, pay 2 life, add 2 to your mana pool. Spend this mana only to play legendary spells.
What? Amazing!
I love this card.
How much is that card?
It's under 250. So it's pushing the budget. But the reason I wanted to add this is because partner commanders are becoming increasingly popular, and you see them all over. And as that commander tax gets higher and higher, you can use this to keep that down. Although you have to pay 2 life, I mean, you have 40. You can spend 4 or 6 of it. I mean, no big deal. I love this card, and I think that... So I originally played it in my Zinder Split and Okan deck because I had 2 commanders, right? They're both legendary. But now with all of the Commander Legends commanders, I'm surprised this card hasn't gone up a little because it's more useful now.
Yeah, I think probably the thing keeping it back is it's a bit inefficient with coming into play tapped and only giving you a colorless. We've seen a lot of like legendary tribal decks. Like I have my Tazri party deck, which this would probably be good in that because most of my legends have two colorless in their cost. So I mean, 2 life to activate it every time is kind of a lot, but yeah, we're starting at 40, so you got a long way to go before it really matters, but that's decent. Yeah, it's worth considering. You
know what else that goes well with? The shrines. If you're playing a shrine deck, this is pretty good. I need one.
Oh, they're legendary shrines.
Yeah, they are.
And I play this also in Niambi legendary blue-white, creatures. So, useful card in our format. Who knew legendary creatures would be played?
Who knew? So Andy, before we move on to the next one, I guess we got to talk about this red highlight thing that chat can't see. Okay,
so let's talk about the MDFCs and if we can consider those utility lands. So
I love them.
Like, so I got Solundi Vision on the screen here. So the front side is the spell, and the back side is a land. Is it a utility land?
I say yes.
I argue yes.
You think that
it's a land that can do something other than tap for mana, right? That's the definition.
Yeah. Now, if we're talking about, which I think is a different subject a little bit, if we're talking about would you play this as one of your lands, like when you're building your deck?
See, that's exactly why I left it off the list, because this should not be taking in place of a land in your deck, and what we're talking about is budget mana bases, so I don't think that these count.
You know what's funny is I did remove some lands and put some of these in from Zendikar Rising, and I think you've talked about it before, Andy, that you did not get a ton from Zendikar Rising, and I added, I think almost every single one of my deck has at least one of these in it now, and I replaced a land with it.
I actually picked up a few. I picked up a few later on, later after the set was released, and some of them are really good, like the Valakut Awakening. That one's really, really good. But I would never ever take out a land for one of these.
Listen, my co-host is a big fan of taking out a land, so
yeah. Okay, so I guess I shouldn't have excluded it, but I guess I didn't feel like it really made sense since we were talking about budget mana bases to include these. But and not, some of them are cheap, some of them are really expensive. Like Agadim, Agadim is super expensive. Seagate is expensive.
Yes.
Yeah. But I do run some of these, like Solundi Vision. I have that in my Kess deck. It's really good. Okay, chat. We're going to be moving on to rocks. Did we miss any, for the people who've been here the whole time, did we miss any lands that we should have talked about? Let us know. All right, let's move on to the rocks. Rock and roll.
Rock and roll.
All right, Andy, do you want to start us off with this rather contentious mana rocks? Some people love it, some people hate it. Some people think it's
love
the worst thing that ever happened to the format, apparently.
It is very it's a very hot topic on whether or not a rock at 2 versus a rock at 3 is useful. I like them both. Arcane Signet's great. So an artifact for 2 that says tap for 1 mana of any color in your commander's color identity. So this is your command tower rock. I love it. I think the main issue is that most folks say that it is just useful as a Soul Ring, where you want to just throw it into every deck. And I don't disagree. I don't necessarily disagree. It's pushing the limit on budget because it's around $250 depending on the printing, and it's been printed a few times now. That's just how popular it is.
Yeah, I remember when these first came out in the Throne of Eldraine Brawl decks, and they were selling for like $20 each, which was crazy because they're commons, and like we knew more were coming. Wizards said it a bunch of times, more are coming, but people were shelling out big money for these. And a lot of people, I think some of the hatred is because of that price tag as well. I don't think people talk about that, but I think that could be part of it. And yeah, some people like to, hate on the concept of auto include, which I guess I kind of understand, but I also don't.
Completely understand, because it feels like your deck is less unique and the variety is going away. So I understand it from that aspect.
Yeah, I guess I kind of had that argument with Jason Alt on Twitter. We were talking about that, and my argument is that I don't feel like I need to be creative with my mana base. Like I want to be creative with the rest of the deck. I want my mana base to be efficient and good and cheap. The rest of the deck is where I can do the fun things. But some people disagree. Nick, you're being kind of quiet on this. What do you think?
So, I'm going to put this out there in case nobody else knows. Gavin Verhey has gone on record to say when they made Arcane Signet, immediately after they saw like what happened to it, they were like, "This was a mistake. Yeah, we should have done this." But now that it exists, they have to keep printing it, and I think they will, which they've shown in Commander Legends. It's going to be in almost, if not every new Commander deck moving forward. I think the Kaldheim Commander decks have these, both of them.
Yep.
So on your note with whether or not like these give your deck hipster points, whatever you want to call them.
Hipster points.
These types of cards like Soul Ring and Arcane Signet and Commander Sphere, I want to argue that they need to exist for people that aren't necessarily good at deck building or just don't like deck building.
Like me.
Yeah, exactly.
Not good at deck. I like deck building, but I'm not good at it.
No, like
give me all the signets.
If Max is still in chat here, on one of the most recent episodes of CMDR Central, Max had mentioned that he's more of a deck refiner. He's not much of a brewer. And so if you're looking for at least a good jumping off point, or if you don't even really care about it like you do, Andy, these are great, and I think they need to keep getting reprinted, and they need to keep being cheap, so anybody who wants access to them, can have it.
Yeah.
I agree with the point about not being a great brewer. I'm really good at taking.
You agree that I'm not a good brewer? Is that what you're saying? No, because that's what it sounded like. You agreeing with me that I'm not a good brewer?
No, for myself.
All right, hold on. I'm
well.
gonna mute you. Just hold on a second.
No, for myself as well. I'm really good at refining a deck, and I like to. You don't reinvent the wheel. You take what someone has kind of put together, and then you say, I do and I don't like X, Y, and Z in this deck, and then you just change it. So. Signets do make it a little easier to decide what you're going to do and be able to have that creativity later.
Yeah. I like what you said, reinventing the wheel. I don't think I need to do that when I'm making my ramp suite in my deck. I want cheap rocks. If I'm not playing green, I want cheap rocks. I want them cheap, efficient, so that I can get to casting my spells, so I can keep up with the green decks.
Only the green decks, though.
All right. Let's move on. Our Milari Sphere. So this one...
What?
So this one, we're at... our Milari Sphere. I don't know. All right, so this one, I think we're in a bit of a disagreement on whether or not this is ramp. I'm air quoting. You guys can't see me, but I'm air quoting. So
I see you on a delay.
Yeah.
Okay, you are watching me on Twitch. Okay, so I personally don't see anything that fetches lands to your hand as ramp. I see it as card advantage, but I think we should still talk about this card because it is essential for building, on a budget to get your lands.
I think it's also useful for decks that aren't running green, like a Rakdos budget deck, because I have a hard time tutoring when I don't have Kadoma's Reach and Farseek, and now 3 Visits, because that was reprinted and is now more affordable. I used to try to run some Rakdos decks, and I was always having an issue keeping up. And eventually, I was told to start running this card. They said, I suggest this, and it works. So I run it more often in my non-green decks.
So there are 1 mana versions too that go get you 1 land, like Wanderer's Twig, and what's the other? There's the card that's the same as Wanderer's Twig. I forget what it is, but that's just a 1 mana version that goes and gets you 1
Traveler's
land.
Amulet.
Thank you, Traveler's Amulet. I think they're good cards. I don't consider them ramp. I never include them in my ramp suite when I'm brewing. But for digging cards out of your deck, lands, especially if you're not running green, they're very good. I definitely run them if I'm doing like an artifact deck, like a artifact sacrifice deck. These are perfect for that kind of deck.
Yeah, so I like this. If anybody watching is on Twitter, PJ from Commander Replay had recently gone on, not a rant, but try to spark a debate on whether or not this is technically ramp. Now, I consider ramp as if it adds mana to the battlefield in some way, it's ramp.
Yeah.
So since this technically doesn't do that, my definition, it's not ramp. But I still think it's very important because it's going to help you stay in the game by making sure you get your next 2 land drops or more if you need it later on.
Yeah. Yep. I agree completely.
Absolutely.
Good. All right. Moving on. Nick, you wanna handle the Sphere?
The Sphere. All right. So
starring Dustin Hoffman.
I don't understand the reference. So Sphere, I'm gonna pair this with Mind Stone right beneath it, and the Clue Stones, and the banners, and pretty much any type of rock that you can cash in for card draw.
Okay.
I love them. They're my favorite type of rocks. Not on our list because it is now too expensive is a Midnight Clock, which I think is like the poster child for what you want to be doing. You can drop it early, it adds mana. Later on, you cash it in, you get more cards. You can just keep playing the game. And that's why I like these. Even in green decks, I will consider Commander Sphere, just because it's less efficient ramp than like Cultivate or whatnot. But Cultivate and Kadoma's Reach don't draw you a card when you need them to later in the game. So, So good early game, good mid game, good late game, good all the time.
Good game.
Good game.
Party.
Good game.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. Commander Sphere is, it's really good. I don't run very many 3 mana rocks. I tend to stick to the 2s, but I usually make an exception for Commander Sphere if I'm in. Usually I'll play them in 2 color, but definitely I'll play them in 3 color. But I don't do them in monocolor. That's just weird. That's just weird. They're weird.
It's like playing Command Tower in a monocolor deck.
Yeah.
All of us weirdos.
Bunch of weirdos.
Yep.
Bunch of weirdos.
You got a style on people if you got that Commander Collection green.
Ooh, true.
Yeah,
That's what I do.
All right, let's move on. Andy, what's the next one?
We've got some Signets. Signets cost 2 mana, and they have an ability for 1 and tap it to add 2 different color to your mana pool. So there are 10 of them. Azorius, Simic, Boros. I mean, I'm not going to name them all. I could.
It sounded like you're about to.
I was going to, because I'm looking at them. And
it's Ravnica, you have to.
It's okay, fine. Demir,
do it alphabetically 10 times in a row.
Oh shoot! This is not alphabetical. And 10 times fast. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I really,
You're a fan of Magic the Gathering? Name all the guilds.
Name all the guilds. You're not a fan if you can't get them.
And then the shards and wedges.
Exactly. I
Backwards,
love
uphill
these.
both ways.
I love these. I probably run these in all of my 2+ color decks. That's just me. I run them.
Yeah, I do too. I don't always play them in. If I'm playing green, like 2-color, I probably don't, but sometimes I do. But pretty much anything outside of green, like I'll just fill up with all the signets that I can. Unfortunately, some of the signets are not cheap because some of them aren't reprinted at the same frequency as others. Like the one that's on the screen, Dimir Signet, was really expensive up until very recently because I think it just got reprinted in Zendikar Rising Commander. Before that, it was almost like some of them were up to like $4. Like you can see these older ones, like Commander 2011 is still $322 for something that was a common in Ravnica, City of Guilds.
Well, Rakdos Signet is $125 as well. That one's up there compared to some of the others that are not that expensive.
For cards that were printed at common in a regular standard set, I would like to see them be a little bit less expensive. Like under $1 is where they should all be, for sure.
Dimir Signet printed 8 times, if I counted correctly, 8 times, and it's still $2, around $2, $1.75, I guess, for certain versions. Yeah. But wow.
Well,
yeah, I consider the signets kind of like in the same lines of Soul Ring. Like they're part of the format. They need to be reprinted, a bunch. They need to be affordable and cheap for all people.
Yeah.
One thing I will say about the green ones, the original art for the Simic one is you got to take a look at it. It's literally a bar of soap. Got to stay clean.
Yeah. Yep, I agree. So yeah, let's Wizards please keep reprinting all the non-green signets as much as you can because we need them cheap. All right, here's one that was also just reprinted and was a little expensive before Double Masters, wasn't it? So this is Everflowing Chalice, and this is basically you get what you pay for, right? Is basically the theme of this card. So it's multi-kicker 2. And for every 2 mana you pay for it, you get to put a charge counter on it and tap it for a colorless for each charge counter on it. So, and it's at common, so it's with the reprint, it's pretty cheap now. Double Masters, 88 cents. So they were actually really super cheap when that set first came out. Like, see, it's creeping up a little bit again, but obviously these are really popular in proliferate decks because you can keep adding the counters to them. But I don't think I'm running this. I might have this in Traxos. I don't remember, but I'm not really running it anywhere else. But I do like it. I think it's a good card.
I run it in Vorl of the Hulklade specifically because I've got a proliferate package in there, but otherwise I don't think I'm running it very often either.
So I really like this card. It's Everflowing Chalice for me is Mom's Meatloaf. When I first started playing the game, it was an original Zendikar block, which is where this came from. And I played it in every EDH deck. And then it got expensive, and now that it's reprinted, I can play it again. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of a nice Spider-Man Homecoming. I'm just going to keep making weird references. But this is nice because it's a 2-mana rock, it's a 4-mana rock, it's a 6-mana rock. It scales, in the game, and whenever you draw, you can play it for... You don't even have to pay, max mana for it. You can just make it another 2-mana rock on turn 8 if you really need to. Obviously really good with, proliferate. Andy, maybe you want to put this in your non-infect deck. It's got proliferate. Could be pretty good.
Actually, that's a good idea. I did not put this in Finn the Fangbearer.
That's what it is. Yeah.
Non-infect.
Yeah.
Chris in chat said this would be good in Halar decks. That is the kicker commander.
Oh, it
person.
Is.
Yeah. I hate meatloaf though. Let's move on.
Wait, the person or the food?
Well, the person's not that great either.
Oh.
Specifically, your mom's meatloaf.
Yeah, I hate Nick's mom's meatloaf.
I
really hate
she
meatloaf.
She watches the show.
My wife made meatloaf recently, and It's like it tastes like you took like a McDonald's hamburger and just like smushed it up with
Oh
like a
my
meat
God.
grinder and
I
just
don't
like
think
smushed
she's
it all
making
together.
right though. I love meatloaf.
I've never had a meatloaf I liked.
Now you know we have a crockpot meatloaf recipe. I'll post it in chat.
Ooh, yes, please. I'm taking that.
I don't have it right now, but I could certainly find
This is
it.
not a cooking show. Keep your meatloaf off my chat.
Keep your chalices Everflowing. Let's go on to the next one.
Yeah.
Nick, you're up.
All right. Herald's Banner, or Heraldic Banner. ETB, choose a color. Creatures you control the chosen color get +1/+0, and you add mana of the chosen color. So I like these for creature-based, or I guess combat-based decks rather, especially ones that have tokens. This is one of the few mana rocks where I would play in a green deck. If you're playing like a green tokens deck, this is just an easy and free way to kind of like pump your creatures. It's a 3 mana rock. A lot of people aren't that high on 3 mana, ramp sources anymore. I still like them, and there's a lot of stuff out there now that people are just kind of missing out on because, it costs 3, I don't need it. There's some good stuff out there, including this.
I run this in the Locust God deck, and it's really fun there. Those bugs get +1/+0,
yeah.
so they're swinging for 2. I mean, they're swinging for double. I mean, some of these decks, like even the new Amara that taps and makes the soldiers, it's just a good rock to have because if you're trying to go wide, you can get a lot done.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. I
Like
don't think I've
10
played this.
insects are fine, but 10 2/1 insects are not fine.
That is not okay.
Yeah,
exactly.
that's a problem. That sounds like it gets out of hand pretty quick. All right, Andy, you wanna take the next one?
Yeah, we've got Mind Stone, an artifact for 2 that taps for 1 generic, or you can pay 1 tap it, sack it to draw a card. I run Mind Stone in most of my efficient mana rock packages. I like Mind Stone. It's okay to have a couple of cards that tap for colorless mana, and later if you need to draw a card off of it, so you do it.
Yeah, I run this in a lot of decks. I'd really like to know when Wizards is going to print the rest of the Infinity Stones. Been waiting. Been waiting. This is a good one though.
Stone.
Yeah. Mind Stone is actually, it's not cheap. Like they're all over $1. Like looks like they're all like around $1.30, $1.40. So keep reprinting them. Looks like they're in Kaldheim. Oh yeah, they're $1 in Kaldheim. Still a lot. Still like them. Come on, I'm cheap. Wizards, keep reprinting these. All right, Nick, do you have anything to say about Mind Stone?
I can't think of anything clever to say, so.
Cool. Let's move on to the diamonds. We've got the Moss Diamond here. That's the green one. So they enter the battlefield tapped, and you tap them for a single color. Up until Commander Legends, these were all super expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're not. They're pretty well outclassed by certain, mana rocks that have come out since. Arcane Signet obviously.
We're looking at you, Arcane Signet.
Yeah, Arcane Signet obviously blows these out of the water, pretty easily. But if you're playing on a budget, these are all under $0.25 now. So I've been adding them to my Scrap Trawlers decks since Commander Legends came out because they're inefficient, but they still ramp you. So
yeah, this one that you have on the screen now, it's like when you're at the store and you say, "Hey mom, I want a Mox Diamond," and then your mom says, "We have Mox Diamond at home," and this is your Mox Diamond at home.
Nice meme jokes. Come here for the meme jokes, people. Every other Tuesday.
We just lost like 5 viewers. Okay, I'm sorry.
They hopped off. Good job.
I never run the diamonds. I really don't. I had some because they were in some of the older dual decks. I never run them. It's one of those rocks I don't reach for when I'm throwing decks together.
Do you think you might run them more now, or do you think because you're not like you don't build budget as much as we do, obviously, so does the inefficiency of them kind of just turn you off, or do you think you might play them more now that they've been reprinted?
I think building on a budget specifically, I would go with this. I think if I were building without a budget, I would not turn to them. But now that I have a lot more of these, because they were from Commander Legends and in the Kaldheim Commander decks, they're a lot more prevalent. They are not useful, but like you said, I think there's more efficient ways to go about building the mana base than the diamonds.
Agreed.
Yeah, with those, I almost always run them in monocolor decks that aren't green, and I'll still look for them for 2-color decks. If you're going any farther than that, I think there are better options for fixing and ramping once you get into more colors.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Yep.
All right, Nick, you want to take the next one?
Yeah. Pillar of Origins. Shout out to us for this tribal commander deck slam that we're doing on Sunday. So it's a 2-mana rock. ETBs, choose a creature type. You can add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool for that creature type. So I played this in our game with Chris and Caleb when I played Pirates. It's technically another copy of Arcane Signet and Tribal decks. Pretty good.
Yeah, except, I mean, it's obviously got the drawback if you can only use it to cast creature spells. That's kind of a big deal to me, I think.
It is.
But in tribal decks, you're not casting spells, you're playing creatures.
Yeah, I mean, if you're running a tribal deck, you're generally going to be playing a lot of creatures, but, in the early game, if you're trying to, cast your rocks and ramp and stuff like that, it can be kind of be lousy to have. But it's...
I guess...
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I think depending on the tribe, it might be more useful, right? So Pillar of Origins is a card that I don't turn to very often, although I am a sucker for tribal decks. I think maybe Wizards or even Merfolk that draw cards inherently themselves might actually benefit from a Pillar of Origins.
Okay. All right, let's move on. Andy, you want to hit the next one here?
I do. Prismatic Lens. 2 mana, taps for 1 colorless, or pay 1 and tap it to add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. So you've got fixing on it. I don't run this as often as I probably should. A very affordable card. If you are running many colors in your commander deck on a budget, this is very useful. I mean, for 1 mana, you can change one into what you need. And if you're running 3+ colors, I bet you that this will be very useful.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. I think Prismatic Lens is... I agree. I probably should be running it more than I do. But it's a good one. It's 2 mana rocks are always good. If they don't come into play tapped or have any drawbacks or anything like the Pillar of Origins, it's good. And if you're playing 2 or 3 colors and you just need that extra color of mana that you don't have, this can be really beneficial. Nick?
So this is a better version of that other 2 mana rock that spiked from the Plane Chase decks, where it kind of does the same thing. It does not filter, but you can tap it to roll the plane or die.
Oh yeah.
When the whole craze of 2 mana rocks was started a year or 2 ago, that card shot up from $0.25 to $5. This is still $0.25, and until people catch on, I mean, this is a great option for what you both stated.
Yeah, I think that was caused by Commander's Quarters, because he was always hyping up that card.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, we're already an hour and a half into this stream. All right.
Wow.
So Solemn
and you blew
Offering.
up one of the things. What are you doing?
Solemn Offering is obviously not a ramp card, but if you search for Soul Ring, it comes up.
What?
Yeah. If you type in Soul Ring, Solemn Offering comes up.
Soul
Ring. Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
So Soul Ring, I don't think we really need to talk about it too much. We all know
we already did.
We all know it's good.
His dad here.
Let's talk about the Talismans. I sincerely hope that we see more of these. We see them reprinted in Modern Horizons 2, because these are fantastic. We need them. We need them reprinted often. They need to reprint the ones from, what was it, Mirrodin block that haven't been reprinted ever. The Talismans are great, and we need them really bad. So please, Wizards, reprint all of them in Modern Horizons 2 or in the Commander decks, wherever. Just reprint them because they're very good. Everybody likes them, but some of them are super expensive. Even the Modern Horizons ones are creeping up very steadily, and we need that to stop because I want to play with them.
Absolutely. Looking right now, I didn't realize that Talisman of Progress from Mirrodin is a $10 card.
It sure is.
I did not realize. I mean, it looks like the cheapest right now is Talisman of Unity, the green-white one. That's still $225.
Yeah, pretty much the green ones are the ones that aren't going up as quickly in price because, you don't play the Signets.
Oh, and Talisman of Impulse. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yes, give me more of these.
Yep. All right, Nick, why don't you read your favorite card here?
This is one of my favorite mana rocks at 3s. This is Unstable Obelisk. It's mana rock that adds colorless, but you can cash it in later for 7 mana to destroy target permanent. This is fantastic in red and black decks, especially the monocolored ones, even just Rakdos decks. Those decks have a really hard time of dealing with enchantments, so this is one of the ways to stay in color and still deal with those problematic permanents.
Yeah, I mean, 7 mana is a lot to ask, but if you're desperate and really need to kill something that your colors just don't let you kill, this is perfect.
I played this on our stream last week, and someone decided to blow this up so I wouldn't blow their thing up.
Wow!
I'm not joking. That happened.
Really?
The video comes out this coming Sunday in a non-budget deck. Yes.
Wow! Just to stop you from using it on their stuff.
So in response, I activated it and blew one of their things up. I mean, it's only fair.
Well, of course, that's what you do.
So I'm also very biased with this card because I literally won a game because I looped this card like 4 times.
Okay, fair.
Are you running this in Vadrock?
I am.
Yeah. Was that where you did it? Vadrock?
No, actually, it was I think it was like when the Duretti Precon came out. I think this might have been in it. And you just sacrifice it, you bring it back, you blow more stuff up, you bring it back. You can just keep going.
All right. Let's move on to our next category here. So this is the non-rock ramp spells.
We're not rocking and rolling anymore?
No.
I turned off the radio.
Yeah. Andy, do you wanna read this one here?
Sure. So we have Beanstalk Giant. It is a star creature on one side with power and toughness equal to the number of lands you control, but you can also send it on a really nice adventure. On vacation, we assume. Warm places. For Fertile Footsteps, 2 and a green, a sorcery that says search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield, and then shuffle your library. And then you can cast the creature later. I do like Beanstalk Giant. It feels like a cultivate. Obviously it's not 2 basic lands, it's just 1. But you put it onto the battlefield. It is untapped.
Yep.
It's not tapped. Useful card, and then later having a star isn't irrelevant, especially if you don't have anything to do. I mean, with 7 mana, perhaps you don't have any cards or something. All in on Beanstalk Giant. Yes.
I love Beanstalk Giant. It is one of my favorite ramp cards. I love cards that scale well, like they're, great late game, great early game. They're pretty much good throughout the entire game. Beanstalk Giant is good in pretty much the entire game. Because at the beginning of the game, it's a ramp spell. At the end of the game, it's a giant creature that your opponents have to deal with. I especially like this in decks like my Atla Palani deck, where you do like top deck stuff where you can cast or bring stuff out from your deck. Like in Atla Palani, if I draw this, I'm okay with drawing it because I can just cast it as its ramp spell. But if I get it with one of the eggs, then I get the benefit there too. So it's good either way. Whereas, all the other giant creatures in my deck, if I draw it, it's like, crap, I can't afford to pay for this. But Beanstalk Giant, I can just cast the ramp spell, and it's perfect. And the land comes in untapped, which is awesome. Nick?
Cool. Yeah, I didn't really play this until I started seeing you play it in some of our earlier episodes of Scrap Trawlers. So yeah, I'm growing to like this card more and more.
Cool.
Growing like a beanstalk.
Yes.
Got there. All right, good. Cool. All right, next one is Burnished Heart. We've been seeing this get reprinted a few times lately, which is nice because this one was creeping up a while too. So this is a 2/2 elk. Not a 3/3 elk, it's a 2/2 elk. Pay 3, sacrifice it, search your library for up to 2 basic land cards, put them on a battlefield, tap, and shuffle your library. I like the heart a lot. You know, there's always the feel-bads of if it gets killed before you can sacrifice it for the lands. That happens, but, you know, it's still good.
You gotta listen to your heart. I run this card a lot. I do. I like it. I think it's great. And again, Landfall loves it. I think just getting lands in general out is a very popular thing to do. So Burnished Heart, top of the list.
Yeah. It's good in the sacrifice decks too.
Yeah.
You know, if you're running...
Totally. I like it because I don't know what the phrase is called, but things in Commander that people just call different names, like Sakura Tribe Elder is Steve and Burnished Heart is Bernie. So I just like that. It's fun.
Yeah. All right, Nick, you want to take the next one?
All right. So Cultivate and Kodama's Reach, because they're technically the same card. One's arcane, but who cares? They weren't cheap for a little bit. I think not until some of the most recent core sets reprinted them, both of them. They're like the standard for mono green ramp or green based ramp, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I guess technically Rampant Growth.
Rampant Growth too, yeah.
This gets you 2 lands for 1 card, so it's ramp and card advantage. Fixes you, helps you with your landfall stuff. It's great. I mean, there's not much to talk about. It's kind of like Soul Ring, where everybody knows what it does, so you just play it and move on.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
All right. This next one I have never played with. Andy, why don't you tell
I have not either, but I am familiar with it. So Diligent Farmhand is a 1/1 for 1, a druid that has pay 1 and a green, sack it to search your library for a basic land and put it into play tapped, and then you shuffle your library. And if you are that person running the Muscle Burst card, it also has an effect because I don't run it, but it's true ramp though. So on turn 1 you play this, on turn 2 you play a land, and then you sack it and you can get another. I mean, you are actually ramping. So
yeah.
It's relevant, and it's a creature. And in budget Commander, I think having blockers is relevant. You're not winning off of combos generally, and it's nice to have a 1/1 and then block and sacrifice. It feels like a Sakura Tribe Elder you have to pay for, but you block something that's big coming at you.
You know, it's very surprising to me that this hasn't been reprinted and it's cheap. Like, usually those two things don't go together on a card that's so useful like this. But I think it's just because a lot of people don't know about this card.
Yeah, it's a green version of Wayfarer's Bauble. I mean, that's exactly what it is. It's a creature. It's good in sacrifice decks. You can recur it. If you're that weirdo that does play Muscle Burst, congratulations.
I don't think anybody is that weirdo. I would like to meet that weirdo. I think it is just that people just don't, because it's less efficient than Sakura Tribe Elder, so people just don't talk about it.
Could be.
But still, it's only 80 cents for a card that's only printed once and is a 1, I guess it's a 3 mana ramp spell for 1 land, but it's still good.
And it's in the Old Border for all the Old Border fans.
There you go.
Yeah, buddy.
There you go. All right. Next up, Dreamscape Artist.
It's a spell shaper.
Yes, it's a spell shaper. Pay 2 and a blue. Tap it, discard a card, sacrifice a land, search your library for up to 2 basic land cards. Put them onto the battlefield, then shuffle your library. So this is like 1 of 1 blue land ramp spells, right? Like, this is the only one, isn't it? Is there one more that I'm not thinking of?
I think the other one's colorless in Walking Atlas. That a blue deck could really take take
Yeah.
or get good use from.
Right.
But
There's a lot of
couple
artifact
edge
things.
case ones,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
we might get to later. But
Sure.
this, since we have another Spell Shaper on there, and it wouldn't be a ScrapChat episode if I didn't talk about Spell Shapers at least once. This is Horror on a Stick, and it's in blue, which is awesome. The other one is Silverglade Pathfinder, which is another Spell Shaper, which is just Rampant Growth on a stick.
Mm-hmm. Efren, thank you for the follow, buddy. Yeah, this is a good card. I think I've only played it in one. I played it in my my Brokos Nightmares deck. At least it's in the deck, but I don't think I ever got to play it on the stream. Other than that, I've never played it.
It's really popular.
It's an
in
All-Star and
Noyan
Tatinova.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a good card. I think more people should run it.
Absolutely.
Okay. Nick?
Andy, before we get to this card, I think this is maybe like the memeiest ramp card we have specifically for Scrap Trawlers. Would you agree?
Pretty much, yeah.
I still like it though.
Well, why don't you go ahead and read it then?
Oh, you want me to read it?
Yeah.
Okay. Explorer Scope. Pay 1. It's an equipment you equip for 1. Whenever equipped creature attacks, look at the top card of your library. If it's a land card, you may put it onto the battlefield tapped. So, Nick and I talk about this card a lot because in our local play group, I was playing Zurgo Helm Smasher. We were playing on Cockatrice, and I had this equipped to Zurgo, and I hit a land like 4 turns in a row. It was amazing. This card can be really, really good. Obviously, you're not going to hit a land every time, but when you do, it feels pretty good. If you're playing like a deck with a commander that you want to attack with a lot, or you have to attack, like Ruhan of the Fomori, this card's perfect.
Yeah, I have seen it though do nothing, and unfortunately, we were playing a Pauper commander game. And I think you had missed like 6 land drops, and we were all blown away because you just needed to get a land to get back into the game.
Yeah, I remember that. That was painful.
Yeah,
but if you have any kind of top deck manipulation too, this is even better.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nick and I are big fans of this one.
Oh yeah, I love Explorer Scope.
All right, Nick, you want to read the next one?
Yeah, so Far Wanderings for your budget graveyard decks. 3 mana, you can search your library for a basic land card, put it on the battlefield tapped, and shuffle your library. But it has Threshold, so if you have 7 or more cards in your graveyard, you get to search for 3 basic lands and put it into the battlefield tapped. So why have 1 Rampant Growth when you can have 3 for 1 more mana in your graveyard decks? It's really good.
But wait, there's more.
Wait, there's more.
Yep. I don't play this card. I don't know why I don't, but I think because it hasn't. I don't know. It's just not. Where has it been printed? Commander 2018, 2016. Torment and Zendikar Rising Commander.
Yeah. It wasn't printed a ton. I believe that it came in the Lord Windgrace deck. Was that 2018 with the commander decks? Yeah, so I think it saw a little bit more play starting then. But I do run Far Wanderings. I run it in decks that I am milling cards. So I have a Gerard Golgari Lichlord deck, so I am already throwing cards into the graveyard. And if you just happen to draw it late game, it feels good to grab 3 basic lands out anyway for 3 mana, even if it's not the most effective spell for, turn, 6 or 7.
Yeah, still gets the lands out of your deck, so you're drawing less of them.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I'm a big fan of Far Wanderings.
Yeah, I should be playing this. I don't know why I don't. Who's next? Do I got Fertilid? I think I have Fertilid.
You sure do.
Okay, so Fertilid is an elemental. Enters the battlefield with 2+1/+1 counters. Pay 1 in the green, remove a counter. Target player searches their library for a basic land card, puts it onto the battlefield, tapped, and shuffles their library. So I kind of feel about this one like I do about Burnished Heart, where you get the feel bads if you don't get to pay the cost to go get the land. Mm-hmm. But if you're able to, it's definitely good, especially if you're running a proliferate deck where you can keep adding counters to it. Then this is really, really good. I know people talk about this one with Obnixilis a lot, the one that hurts people when they search their deck, because it doesn't say you do it; it says target player. So,
tricksy.
Yeah.
Or you can help out a friend, right? You earn some bounty points by saying, "Oh, you missed that land drop. Here, let me give you one."
It's an excellent political card too. Yep. Yeah, Fribble is got a lot of good uses. Nick doesn't like it. He's very quiet.
No, I'm the one who put it on the list.
Oh, okay.
We talked about
well,
this
then
card
say
in
something.
I want to give you some time in the spotlight. Davey took it all. No, we talked about this in our episode on 1/1 counters.
Yep.
So this is a nice way to... I like a lot of political cards, like Victory Chimes, which we did not cover. This, can let you, make an ally, help them get into the game. You can cash in that favor later. As you said with Obnixilis, you can do some real damage with it. With Opposition Agent, I think that just lets you ramp out of their deck, which if you want to do that, I guess, whatever. But yeah, it's, again, really good in 1/1 counter decks. You can just keep putting counters on it to keep ramping out. So it's repeatable ramp in those decks.
Yeah.
It's good. It's good.
It's good.
All right, Nick, you got the next one.
No, let's do Andy Floury. He hasn't done one in a little bit.
Oh, is it his turn?
Okay.
I don't know. I can't keep track of these.
Font of Fertility. It's an enchantment for 1 green that says pay 1 green and a generic mana and sack it. Search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield tapped, and shelf your library. So it is Diligent Farmhand without the Muscle Burst, but in an enchantment. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I think that kind of makes it better because it's not gonna die if somebody board wipes or there's like all creatures get -1/-1.
Farmhand, like that'd make for a fun story.
Yeah, they feel very similar. Enchantments are more difficult to remove, so you're almost guaranteed to be able to get that basic land.
Yeah.
It's another green version of Wayfarer's Bauble.
Yeah.
And this is good for Enchantress decks.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, moving on. We've got Ghirapur Orry. So this is a group hug card. Each player may play an additional land on each of his or her turns. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, if that player has no cards in hand, that player draws 3 cards. All right, so the second part of it is rarely gonna come into play in Commander. Might once in a while, but usually people don't get held on too often in Commander. But everybody gets to play an additional land, which is technically ramp. It doesn't put you ahead of anybody else unless you're running a deck that has a lot of lands. And you're going to have extra lands to play every turn. But I don't think I'm playing this in anything. Andy, do you play this at all?
I don't run this, but I love when other people play this. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
You're so sweet.
That was so nice of you.
I'll kill you last.
Exactly.
I play both this and Rites of Flourishing. I've been playing them more and more. I just love being able to, again, be political and help out other players. Sometimes you can get them more cards to keep them in the game. It gains you some political favor. This also has the added benefit of, if you're playing one of those landfall decks, everybody knows how those players are. This also gains you political favor because they're probably not going to kill you right away. It's like, oh, well, we're all ramping. I'm getting a little more value out of it, but it's okay. It's fine.
Yeah, don't worry. It's good.
But I like this because it's both ramp and card draw. Assuming you have a lot of lands, which you should.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, all right. I think, Nick, you want to do the next one?
Yeah, so we have Gift of Estates, 1 and a white sorcery. If an opponent controls more lands than you, if you're playing white, they will. You search the library for up to 3 Plains cards, reveal them, put them in your hand. I wanted to emphasize the Plains thing with that inflection because it doesn't say basic. So you can search for, any lands that have the Plains lands typing. Earlier we talked about the Battle for Zendikar lands. You can search for those if they have the Plains land type. If you're not playing budget and you have shocks, you can search for those too. Again, not technically ramp, but it is going to ensure you hit your next 3 land drops, which is fantastic.
I like it a lot.
I've never played it.
Me either. But it's solid on paper.
Yeah, I dig it. It's only $2, so that's not bad. I mean, the only time it's going to be bad is if you're ahead on lands. But yeah, I mean, if you're running first, if you're running like white or white red, you're probably gonna not have trouble casting this card for its effect.
Right.
Okay. We got a new card here. Andy, why don't you read?
Yeah, Gold Vein Pick is an equipment artifact for 2 that says equipped creature gets +1/+1, and whenever equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, you create a treasure token, and it has equip for 1. So you're swinging with creatures here. If you've got some evasion, even better. And treasure tokens are ramp, and I do like playing with treasure tokens. So this seems fun. You're probably playing an equipment deck if you're running this. Boros is probably taking a lot of advantage from a card like this.
Yeah, I'd say if you got a commander that has flying, I would really consider this, because your flying commanders are always a lot more likely to get in there.
Yeah, exactly that. We also have what is it, Prying Blade, which is the casting cost equip inverse of this thing. Treasure is good. It's good with things like Reckless Fireweaver, so every time you deal combat damage, you burn everybody for 1. Every time you sacrifice an artifact, stuff happens. So that's nice. I do play both in Vadrok as just a way to, start ramping, very quickly, and being able to use the treasure tokens, I think is, if you are trying to use treasure tokens like in the new Magna decks,
yeah,
something you want to consider when you're building up your mana base.
All right, moving on. We got a card that I really like. I run this in my Damia deck. This is Colony Heart Expedition. So it's got landfall. Whenever land enters battlefield under your control, put a quest counter on it. Then you can remove 3 quest counters. Search your library for up to 2 basic lands. Put them on the battlefield tapped. That's just a solid ramp card.
I run this in a few decks. I like Colony Heart Expedition a lot.
Yeah, I dig this a lot.
Yep.
Been running it in more decks lately. I think it's good. Nick, do you run this one?
I've fallen out of favor with this one. I only really consider it for landfall specific decks now. In order for it to be good, you need to already have lands, which, in my opinion, unless you're in a landfall deck, kind of defeats the purpose of it.
Sure.
All right, Debbie Downer.
Does it ramp you? Yes, but by the time it ramps you, you might not need it.
I feel like it's always good to get 2 basic lands out of your deck, unless you're like in turn 10 or something and you don't have any more in your deck because you've already tutored them all out. Then I think it's always good to get them.
Yeah, that's fair.
So you're wrong.
Oh, okay.
All right. Let's skip Kodama's Reach. We've talked about it.
Yeah.
Andy, why don't you tell us the next one?
All right, moving on to Crozan Wayfarer, a 1/1 for 1. I love getting the 1/1 for 1s here. That has sacrifice it to put a land from your hand into play. So you do have to have it in your hand.
Yep.
But you can do that right away. This does not have Summoning Sickness. You do not have to tap it. So that is relevant.
That's a decent turn 1 play right there.
It is. I like it.
I would hope you'd start the game with at least 2 lands in your hand. But yeah,
I try for 3.
Yeah, I always do too. But yeah, playing 2 lands on turn 1, that's good. That's really good.
Yeah, see, I'm trying to metagame the EDH Metasphere right now. People are always on their 2 mana ramp, right? This is 1 mana ramp. They're gonna remember man, 1 is better than 2, and they're gonna start looking at this stuff. And it's going to spike, so grab them right now.
Yeah, has not been reprinted since Judgment, and it's only 28 cents. Why?
You can tell this is one of my picks because it's only been printed in 1 set and nobody knows what it does.
Yeah. People just don't know about this one, but wow, they really should.
And the art's really weird.
Second land in a Soul Ring.
I absolutely should put this in my new Kodama and Tevesh Zot deck, because that would be fantastic in that deck.
You get 2 triggers off of Kodama.
Yeah, Yeah,
Oh, that's true.
because this would be really good in the late game too. Yeah. Yeah, a lot of Kodama triggers. Yep, I dig it. So here's one that I had never seen before. Liliana Shade. When it enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a swamp card, reveal it, put it into your hand, and shuffle your library. So again, not exactly ramp, it's card advantage, but still, if you're, it's pulling a land out of your deck, so that's always beneficial. I don't know, who added this to the list? Was this Nick or Andy?
I did, and I spelled cartographer wrong with Chord Cartographer. I don't know why I spelled it like that, but I would like to see this cycle semi-completed with both blue and red. And I know it's a little bit worse than Solemn, but these are nice, especially in both the black and white decks. In black, because it's easy to sacrifice to get some triggers off of, and you can reanimate it to get more swamps. And in the white decks, it's easy to blink to... I think Chord Cartographer might put the planes into play, if I'm not mistaken. So you can easily blink that to keep pace with the rest of the game. And you could do a lot worse for pennies on the dollar.
All right, let's bring up Chord Cartographer. I think it was on the list, but it's not showing up because I spelled it wrong, right?
You mean I spelled it wrong? Yeah.
Yes, you spelled it wrong. All right, so enters battlefield. You may search your library for plains card, put on the battlefield, tap. So that's pretty good. You don't
easy to blink.
You don't see that much in mono white. Land
Right.
ramp. So it's a good card. All right. Who wants to take the Mitotic Manipulation? Is it Andy? I think it's your turn. Why don't you read that?
All right. Mitotic Manipulation, 1 blue for a sorcery that says, look at the top 7 cards of your library. You can put one of those cards onto the battlefield if it has the same name as a permanent. Put the rest onto the bottom of your library in any order. So you can reveal the top 7 if you already have, assuming an island or the secondary color, whatever it is that you're running. You can just put one of the lands onto the battlefield. Or something else if you really wanted to. I guess not in Commander. Unless you were running a card that said everything has the same name. Does that work in your hand? I don't think so. It's probably
Yes,
be a land.
it does work with Spy Kid, if you're wondering.
Okay, interesting. I don't run this in anything. I didn't realize that this existed, I'll be honest.
Yeah, this is the other weird mono blue ramp. You got retraced image kind of next to it, which is just the 1-mana version, but you have to have another island in hand. But yeah, it's a it's a mono blue way to start ramping lands. If you're playing Relentless Rats or Persistent Petitioners, this is a way to get another one into play. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
So SPDO in chat is saying Knight of the White Orchid. If I'm not mistaken, I don't think that's budget.
I know it was reprinted, but I don't know if it's budget still. It might still be like...
Oh, okay. So they're down to 153.
Oh, cool.
All right, so we can talk about this real quick. So 2/2, first strike, Human Knight. When it enters battlefield, if an opponent controls more lands than you may search your library for a plains card, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle your library. I feel like that's where Wizards needs to go with, keep doing that type of effect to, get people to be happy playing white and not complaining about the lack of ramp. It's treat white as the catch-up color. I think that's kind of where they're heading. Hopefully we'll see more effects like that. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Did we get one in the Commander Legends? Was it Keeper of the Accord? Is Keeper of the Accord similar with a catch-up?
Yeah. So Keeper of the Accord is I think it's at the end of every turn. Obviously, we're not talking about that here because it's not a cheap card. But it's at the end of every turn. If an opponent controls more lands than you can go get a plains. If an opponent controls more creatures than you can make a creature token. So it's a fantastic card, and I think that's what we're going to start seeing more of in white to get it to catch up with the other colors that are better at ramping.
Yeah, I would like them to consider combining some of these effects where, let's say Knight with White Orchid, when it enters, if you have less lands, you get one, but if you don't, it just goes in your hand, so you still kind of get it.
That'd be nice.
I don't know if that's too strong, but it seems fine.
Yeah.
It does seem okay.
All right. Muanvuli Acid Moss. It's a sorcery. Destroy target land. Search your library for a forest card and put that card into play tapped. Then shuffle your library.
Card's rude.
I love it.
Okay, tell us about why you.
No, this is similar to like a Ghost Quarter, right? So you're getting rid of a land, but you're also searching for a forest. Now, like we said before, in Budget Commander, there probably aren't going to be as many problematic lands that you need to remove. But I mean, you can still take someone off of a color if they're on 3 colors. I mean, you don't have to be nice with it. You could be. But they don't get to replace that land, and you get to actually get one.
No, I do like this card. I mean, it reminds me of a card I didn't put on the list, which is Death Sprout, which kind of does the same thing, right?
Sure.
You destroy a thing, get a land. So yeah, I like this. This is a good pick.
All right. Yeah, I almost never run land destruction spells. The most I ever run is like Ghost Quarter. I don't put spells in to destroy lands just because I don't know. I just never feel like I want to put a slot for that in any deck. Because, like, what deck does that go in then? You know? Does it go in every deck? Do you slot that in for every deck? Or is there specific decks where you want to blow up lots of lands? I don't want to play this.
I think you would consider Acid Moss for possibly landfall decks that, you know, if you don't want to play Volcanic Offering and you want... Let's say your meta has a lot of Cabal Coffer effects and whatnot. This kind of hits 2 birds with 1 stone. It ramps you and it solves a problem.
Once again, we go back to Max's Nykthos.
Yeah.
Take it out.
Yeah.
You know?
Kill Max's
This also
Nykthos
doesn't have a basic
on site.
clause, which is very nice.
It doesn't.
Yep.
Any
Get
forest.
Any forest, yep. Sweet. Go get your gingerbread cabin. Those are forests. I'm not lying.
They
I
sure
like the
are.
Throne of Eldraine lands. Those are fun.
Yeah, I think they're... Well, Mystic Sanctuary is pretty broken.
Well, blue's great, so...
It is, isn't it? It's so lovely.
It's so fun.
Nick, why don't you tell us about the monuments?
So all the monuments, except the black one, our budgets, they're kind of like the medallion cycle, but they only count for creatures. But they also have an extra effect. Lenny on Twitter was talking about this, where I think he played it in a deck. Maybe it was the red one, Hazard's Monument, where he played it in a deck just to start discarding cards, which is pretty sweet. But you know, for monocolor decks, these are really good, especially in creature dense ones.
I don't run these as often as I probably should.
I only run Ronus's Monument. I've never run the other ones. But I probably should. They're good. They all have, like, a really good effect when you cast a creature spell. Like, I don't think any of them is bad, so...
The blue one's questionable. I mean, there are things you can do with it, but...
You put a creature to sleep, is that what it does? Target creature opponent controls doesn't untap during its next untap step? I guess politically, maybe, but...
Yeah, but you're really using it for the first effect, which is
of course.
You know, if you're playing a lot of little creatures, like the blue one in Persistent Petitioners is really good.
Ooh, are you running Kefnet's Monument in that deck?
I might be.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
All right. So we've talked about Prying Blade. We talked about Rampant Growth. Do we want to talk about Retraced Image? We kind of mentioned that already, but...
Yeah, and we mentioned Rise of Flourishing.
Yeah. We talked about Steve. Search for Tomorrow. We haven't talked about Search for Tomorrow.
With new art.
Oh, the best art. It's my favorite new art from the set.
That's the Doctor Strange rings there.
Is. It's Doctor Strange.
Yeah, we got to get the Time Stone in a card here soon. Come on. Chop, chop. All right, you want to read Search for Tomorrow, Andy?
Sure. So Search for Tomorrow is a sorcery for 2 and a green. Search your library for a basic land, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle your library. But it also has to spend 2 for 1 green mana, so you can suspend it. So rather than pay the cost of this card to cast from your hand, you can pay 1 green and exile it with 2 time counters on it. At each upkeep, you remove a time counter, and when you remove the last time counter, you cast it without paying its mana cost. So on turn 1, you can suspend it to get a basic land later, or you can just pay 3 if you have the mana and wanna pay it. So I don't play Search for Tomorrow enough. I'm not sure how valuable it is or in what decks we specifically want it in. What are your thoughts? How often do you play Search for Tomorrow?
I don't play it super often, but I did put it in my the Emoti Cascade deck that I built recently.
Oh,
because this is really good for that. Sure. To cascade into. I mean, if you draw it, you just suspend it, but cascading into it just gives you a land. So that's good.
Yeah, I would play this more if I owned any. I do like it a lot. It's anything you can do for turn 1, and you don't have to worry about later is pretty sweet.
Yeah, I dig it. Okay, we got another spell shaper. Why don't you go ahead and read this, Nick?
I covered it with Dreamscape Artist. We can skip it. It's just rampant growth on a stick.
Okay. All right, Solemn Simulacrum. Pretty much everybody knows this one. It enters the battlefield. You get a land. When it dies, you get a card. It's one of the best cards in Commander, I think.
I like it.
I would still consider it on the tier of like step ladder thing for ramp in the format. You got Soul Ring turn 1, Arcane Signet turn 2, Commander Sphere turn 3, Solemn turn 4. You're gonna have a perfect game.
Yeah.
You can't lose. It's impossible.
All right.
Impossible.
Birth of Meletis. This is the saga. So step 1 is, I think why we're talking about it here. Search your library for basic plains card, reveal it, put it into your hand. So this is a card advantage one, not a ramp spell, but it's definitely helpful when you're playing white or white plus, and you just need to get those lands out of your deck. The other steps are decent. I don't know. I guess I'm not a huge fan of this card, but I don't know. Whoever put it on the list, tell me why you like it.
Was it me? It was me. It's me. Hi, it's me. So, if you're playing mono white, there's outside of mana rocks, there's not a lot you can do at 2 mana to start getting lands either on the battlefield or even into your hand. This is a super budget way to do it. I mean, Tithe is $30 now. Land tax $30. Gift of Estates is already $2, and once people remember that it exists, I'm pretty sure they're going to start picking it up. This has the added benefit of also giving you an early blocker and gaining you some incidental life, which is never a bad thing. And you can recur it with Vadrock, which I'm not doing right now, but I considered it.
Okay.
I don't run this in anything right now, but I would assume that if you can, reanimate some enchantments or keep bringing them back, it might be useful.
Yeah.
Yeah, good in Blink decks.
Yeah.
Okay. Andy, do you want to read the last one on this category?
The last one here, Walking Atlas, a 1/1 for 2 generic mana. It's a construct creature. Tap, you may put a land from your hand onto the battlefield. So I didn't put this on the list, but it's actually another one of the cards that goes relatively well with Noyandar Royal Shaper, which is my pet deck. I'm not running it in the build that I have right now, but it is a very popular card along with that Dreamscape Artist that we talked about earlier. Solid card, and if you have the lands, you can keep putting them onto the battlefield by tapping it. And also really good in Maloku, the Clouded Mirror. It creates, it helps to create a combo with a couple of lands as well. Pretty cool stuff.
I don't run this. I probably should, but I do run Sakura Tribe Scout, which is the green version.
Mm-hmm.
It does the same thing.
Yeah, so you would want to run Walking Atlas in primarily white decks because most of the white effects, as we saw, put the land cards in your hand. Well, now if you're running Walking Atlas, it doesn't really matter. You're technically still going to ramp. Also, as you said with the green version, not a bad colorless option for landfall decks either.
Right.
Agreed. All right, so that is our second to last category. Let's move on to our last category here, which is rituals. This is also our smallest category too, and it's the last one, so we're almost there. All right, Nick, I think these first two here are all you, buddy.
So I'm assuming when you looked up Bog Witch, Bog Brew Witch came up, which is perfectly fine with me.
Oh yeah, Bog Brew Witch. Yeah, that's so we'll skip that one. You can just read Bog Witch.
All right.
It's
so
a spell
Bog
shaper.
Witch,
Blah,
it is
blah,
a spell
blah.
shaper. It's a 1/1 for 3, but you can pay black, discard a card, and Dark Ritual. It's Dark Ritual on a stick. It's in a black deck. You want stuff in your graveyard. You want to cast Dark Ritual. It's fantastic. Why aren't you playing this card?
I like this card. This is cool.
It's it seems good. I used to have an Angie Falconwrath deck, and I should have had this in there. I don't know why I didn't.
Yeah, do you want to win with...
look at me, like, trying to get my spaghetti out of the plate.
Yeah, this can throw away a World Gorger Dragon if you want to go for infinite mana. You know? Ooh.
Oh, and it gives you the mana to cast Animate Dead. Bam, that's a combo.
Ooh, but Animate Dead is not budget anymore, I don't believe.
No.
No.
Okay. Andy, do you want to read the next one?
Who put this on the list? Bubbling Muck for 1 black. Until end of turn, whenever a player taps a swamp for mana, it produces an additional black mana.
This is like high Tide, except it's for swamps.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, it's a very strong card for black mana.
Yeah, it pushes the budget a little bit. I think it's at $2, if not a little more.
$2.50.
$2.50. Yeah, so it's almost at $3. So slowly creeping out of budget range. But if you got the extra 50 cents to put towards that, it's pretty good late game.
It's never been reprinted.
Save $1.50. You can play the High Tide, the blue version of it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, if you're in the right colors, yep.
If you're in the
So yeah, High Tide is the same thing, except it's an instant speed, whereas Bubbling Muck is a sorcery. High Tide you can get for less than $1, less than 70 cents.
Yeah, it's been reprinted.
It's been reprinted. You can get that comic book version for $20, or you can get one of like the seasonal, almost like the seasonal when they did that in Fallen Empires. There's 3 different versions from the same set. One is $2.80, but the others are under $1.
It's weird.
Okay, so this next card is the reason we call this category Rituals. This is Dark Ritual. So it's a card, you pay 1 black mana and you get 3. Pretty simple.
I run it in all my black decks. I do.
I believe you.
If you are unfortunate enough to not have pulled a Commander Lotus, and you're playing black, this is what it is. You get a Dark Ritual for like $0.25.
Yeah.
I don't even know what that thing is called. What is it called?
Jeweled Lotus.
Jeweled Lotus, yeah.
But this you can use on things other than your commander too. So
it's true. It's even better. This card should also be like $500.
No, I don't want that because then we can't play it.
Keep it affordable.
Although I can sell all mine because I have like 20 of them or something.
I just want people to play Bog Witch instead.
Why not both? Insert the why not both meme.
Yeah.
Okay, so this next one, High Tide Hermit, only came up because of High Tide. So, Nick, you want to read Mana Geyser?
I thought you were going to ask me to read the Hermit.
It's not supposed to be here, but by golly, it's there, so you better read it.
All right, so Mana Geyser, still somehow surprisingly cheap.
Yeah.
5 mana for a
That
sorcery.
always surprises me.
You add red mana for each tapped land your opponents control. And if you play this on turn 5, and everybody's tapped 5 lands, that's 15 mana for 5 mana. At the least.
I don't know why this is cheap.
It's been reprinted in Conspiracy, I think.
That's it. It's been reprinted once. And it's $1.50 for the Conspiracy version. I don't know why this is cheap. It shouldn't be.
I don't either.
I can tell you why it's going to be cheap for the foreseeable future. We got a better version. Or a more efficient one, I should say, in Commander Legends. It's one of the wills. It's Jessica's Will.
Jessica's Will?
Which I would argue is way better than Mana Geyser. It doesn't give you as much mana, but it also draws you cards. And you can play it way earlier. And I think it's an instant.
Chat saying Mana Geyser is going to spike soon.
All right.
Mark my
Get
words.
ready first.
Okay. Well, yeah.
But you know, if you can't afford Jessica's Will, which is now like $9, $10, whatever it is,
It's
Yeah.
up
Mana
there.
Geyser is still a really good card.
Yeah. Okay.
What do you have
Andy.
next? Seething Song. All right, it's an instant for 3 mana, 2 and a red. So you pay 3 and you get 5 red mana. So add red to your mana pool.
It's just a bigger ritual.
Yeah, I like it. Net 2 red mana on turn 3. If your commander costs 5 or if you want to cast Seething Song into a Mana Geyser, and all your opponents have tapped out on turn 3, put you pretty far ahead. I like it.
Yeah. You can cast your Neheb the Eternal on turn 3. That's really freaking good. I like that.
Exactly.
All right. One more here. I will read the last one here. Vessel of Volatility. So this is an enchantment. Pay 1 in red, sacrifice it, and get 4 red. Okay. So, I mean, you're not really getting ahead on mana because you're paying 2 to cast it, but then 2 to sacrifice it. But obviously, you're probably not going to do that on the same turn. You're going to cast this turn 2 and then sacrifice it later when you need the extra mana. But, yeah, it's good. I don't play it in anything. Who plays this? Nick, do you play it?
Yeah, I played this in our first episode with Kiki Jiki.
Okay.
This on turn 3 gives you a turn 3 Kiki Jiki.
Oh.
Assuming you have your 3rd land drop.
Right. Okay.
That works.
Yeah. Okay. That's all the cards. Okay. So before we go, thank you everybody. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe. And don't forget, Black Lives Matter, trans rights are human rights. Good night, everybody.
Okay, thanks everyone.
Good night.